Howdy, folks! Happy Tuesday. I was just relaying to Russ. It's beautiful here. It's sunny. It's like in its 60. It's like the 60s, which, believe me, is welcome. And it's supposed to be like that all week, so it's getting closer. But I'm sure there are going to be a few cold spells between now and when it really starts to get warm. But I was walking through this basically a Sam's Club type of supermarket, bulk type of thing. This morning, and there's an entire section in this place that's basically like walking into like a meat locker.
Yeah.
And it was nice and warm outside, and it was warm in the entire place, and I'm wearing like a long sleeve t-shirt basically, and I walk into this thing, and if I get a cold, it's on this friggin' place because I couldn't walk quick enough to get out of there. But anyway.
Yeah, it's one of those days. Like I said, it's cold in my house. I said it to you, and it's warm outside. Like that happens. Then a few more days of warmth, it'll start getting warm in my house. But it takes a few days for it to sort of penetrate the old house. Anyhow, so let's talk baseball because everybody in the chat room loves it. Too bad. And no, some do, some don't. But the interesting thing is, so we're going to talk about the electronic umpire. And they did use it in the independent leagues and the Arizona Fall League. And so the umpire wears an earpiece, and when they hear ball or strike, they literally just hold their arm up. So they don't do much. This thing is called a Doppler radar system or TrackMan, and the umpire will hear and relay the call. So basically, you or I could be the umpire because at this point for balls and strikes, it doesn't matter who it is. Now, the umpire is still needed for plays at the plate and other things.
Why am I getting a flashback of Leslie Nielsen in The Naked Gun, like Enrico Palazzo behind the plate?
The two issues I have with this, the two biggest issues, one is if we were in the era where somebody was doing the volley floater, the eat this pitch, or even like on a backdoor slider, is this thing really going to catch something that is out of the strike zone and ends up in the strike zone? I don't think so. And those other leagues don't have pitchers that generally have those kinds of great pitches in their arsenal. I think that's going to fall flat. And then here's the basic one. What if all of a sudden there's a Wi-Fi disturbance in the ballpark? How bad is the relay going to be for the umpire? Is he going to be like, and just like wait 4 or 5 seconds for each pitch?
Strike?
Well, the funny mark above his head, right?
Well, and don't say that's an impossibility because I'd say 5 years ago, I went to a game at Yankee Stadium, and New York City. This is when 4G was just coming around. It was 4 or 5 years ago when 4G was just coming. And like I had a 4G phone, and there was no place that had 4G except until I went to New York City, and then it was 4G.
So you're saying Buffalo was slow to get 4G? Is that what you're saying?
We're just getting 4G now, 4 years after the fact. So like, I'm like all enthused because like my phone is moving at like light speed compared to the way it did before. And then all of a sudden, like in the third inning of the game, 4G crapped out, and it was basically operating like it was at the speed when I used to go to Canada. Like I was like on a pirated, So it's like, okay, if they're operating on Bluetooth or whatever, and it goes down, then the umpires are going to have to take over for themselves. And as well as I do, after a year or so, these guys won't even know how to tie their shoelaces, let alone how to call balls and strikes.
I'll tell you what I would do. I would play the long game here. I would. And I would play the long game for certain things.
Sure.
I would go through the umpire school. I would go and make sure I'm good enough. I know what to do. I would make sure I get in the game, and then I would put the earpiece in, and I would just start calling the game like it used to be called and let somebody come out of the dugout and pull me off the field. That would be a sight, and it would be a great sight to sort of show that this isn't the way it should be. And because I kind of wonder if an umpire did that and went rogue, how many pitches would it take for them to try and forcibly remove the umpire?
I think he would survive the game, and then he'd never work again.
You think he'd make it through the game, though?
Yeah, I think he'd make it through the game because the embarrassment of them, like, calling the security out there to pull him off the field.
Well, just think about it. Like, can you imagine after, like, 3 pitches, there would be, like, this computer guy, because there's somebody else
come here
monitoring, and he'd be like calling somebody at Major League Baseball's offices. He's not calling the pitches, the computer is. What are we going to do? Like, could you imagine the phone calls?
It's like a baseball terrorist act. No, now, okay, just to go down memory lane, and then we'll start the show. I was flipping through the channels on the weekend, and for some reason, they were playing on the Yes Network. They were playing Game 1 of the 1996, not the series, because they lost that game. It's only when the Yankees win that they play those games.
It's been a while.
Yeah, so they played 1996 Game 1 of the ALCS, I believe it was ALCS against Baltimore. So it was Andy Pettitte versus Scott Erickson. And this is the famous game, the Jeffrey Mayer.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So the umpiring in this game, above and beyond that call, which I think was Rich Garcia was the umpire in right field. Because remember, the kid Jeffrey Mayer reached out over the outfield wall, and caught it, and they called it a home run.
Right, wasn't Tony Tarasco the guy going for the ball?
And Tony Tarasco went more crazy than Moises Alou did.
Davey Johnson was the manager, right?
Well, yeah, that you're stepping on what I was going to bring up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. But first of all, the bad call in the outfield. There was another call in the same corner with the same umpire, but it was a foul ball, and the fans reached out into foul territory in that small space and reached out and interfered with Tarasco pitching another ball. And the thing I saw was like Pettitte was 3-0 on some batter, and the ball, Russ, was about 1.5 feet outside the strike zone, and the umpire called it strike one.
Wow.
If it's like even in the same zip code, they on a 3-0. If it's anywhere close to it, they used to call it strikes.
Yeah, that's crazy. I did just try and look up Jeffrey Mayer on Twitter, and he's not on there. He's about 36 years old.
Yeah, he was about 12 years old in 96. That means he was born in 84, which means he's what? 36, 37.
That's fine. I could do math. But anyhow, there is an account for 12-year-old Jeffrey Mayer. It's pretty funny.
But yes, but the funny thing was that the thing that you stepped on, I couldn't believe how many former Mets were in this game. Okay, Joe Torre, former Met manager. Davey Johnson, former Met manager. Strawberry was on the Yankees roster. Wasn't Eddie Murray a Met for a while?
Yes.
Okay,
1 year.
Eddie Murray.
Todd Zeal played third, I think, for the Orioles.
I don't know. I mean,
I'll look it up.
Yeah, I mean, BJ Surhoff wasn't a Met, but I think Armando Benitez was their closer.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, there were so many. I mean, Gooden wasn't on the playoff roster.
No, actually, Zeal was not on that. Oh no, he was. Wait, 96, Todd Zeal. Yep.
Yeah, Todd Zeal. I mean, there was so many former Mets. It was so.
That's how I know that team, because there's a lot of former Mets.
So it was so weird. It was
Hold on, I'm going to eject my dog here.
Forcibly ejecting Perla or Kaya, whoever it was. You gotta go. Okay, Nat, we'll talk about that in a minute here. I honestly, I don't think COVID is going to destroy the trade deadline. It's not going to be as busy as people think, or as busy as it was last year. But I do think it's going to be busy. I still do think that there are going to be and Timothy Park says that, I remember when Benitez hit a Yankee. The Yankee, I believe, was Tino Martinez.
Yeah.
The thing I remember is Darryl Strawberry beating the crap out of Armando Benitez.
Listen, Strawberry just needed an excuse. He was one of the fire starters at Gillies. He was always looking for a fight.
Oh,
and the Mets, remember, the Mets in '86, they had at least 3 bench clearing brawls in the baseball season, let alone what happened in Gillies in Houston. So, he was always ready for a fight. But, I just remembered, for whatever reason, Zeal was on that team. But what I always took out of that game was
I would never insult your dogs to say that they're Red Sox fans.
What always bothers me about these games is, why do these kids want to get into the field of play to get a ball. I don't understand. My dad taught me a long time ago, listen, something goes in the stands, catch it, whatever. But why would I reach into the field of play? I don't understand why someone does that.
I would never reach into the field of play because I'd be afraid that I'd be made a spectacle. Like, I mean, it ruined Bartman's life. It really did. But if a ball is hit into the outfield into like an area of seats where there's nobody, then I'm running for the ball. I mean, especially if it's a major league game. I mean, I saw some kid in Texas. Remember when Texas used to have that center field that was all green grass, and some kid jumped over the railing and ran and tripped like 5 feet before the ball and was crawling to the ball, and some guy had just walked over. He just picked up the ball, turned around, and walked away.
Believe it or not, for all the games that I've been at, I have only caught one ball, and it was a batting practice homer in Vet Stadium, and I think Zeal actually hit it. And that's the only ball I've ever caught. I've been to so many games. I told you there's even a video of the first home run ever hit at Citi Field, and you could see me in a full Met jacket jumping about 3 inches off the ground, which it should have been a better jump than that. Hits a guy behind me, he breaks his finger, and then it goes behind that guy, and that person's got the first home run at Citi Field, not me.
Okay, so I'm like, I almost caught a ball, but it almost killed me. I think it was Ruben Sierra.
Oh, he could hit too.
Yeah, and he was a switch hitter, and I was sitting in the right field. Well, I was sitting along the first baseline, around the corner of near the foul pole, and he yanked one foul, and it missed my head by about 3 feet and hit the seat, and it didn't dent it, but it was pretty loud, and then somebody else got it. All I can say, I'm waiting for Michael Cohen say in the chat, basically saying, "Too bad it didn't hit me." But
and then you'll ban him, right?
And then I'll ban him. Exactly. All right, let's start the show.
No, you know the one last thing. The only thing that worries me at a ball game, and not so much anymore because of the netting or whatever, is when you would be, I guess you would have to be on the first base line, and a lefty would get up.
Yeah,
because lefties were notorious for hitting them in the crowd.
Yes.
Righties never bothered me. Like, I never worried about a righty getting me. Look, home runs, though, as you see, the exit velo, if you think you're catching something 100 miles an hour easy, I always try and use the hat. I never try and use the hand, because at least I'm not going to, bruise the hat.
And I'm not bringing a glove. I'm sorry.
No. We're too old for the glove.
I'm not 12 years old.
Right. But the lefty, when the lefty gets up and you have field level seats, that could be terrifying, man.
Yes. Yeah. No, thank you. Okay. All right. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Tuesday, March 23rd, 2021.
I'm Russ Cohen, and I have to laugh at Nat Drews because he said he called me Russ Okvetchkin. That's pretty good. He said Michael Cohen would say that, but he said it, so whatever.
Well, he's saying that Michael Cohen is a combination.
Oh, he's a okay.
Yeah, it's a combination of me.
Well, I like that. Russ Okvetchkin is funny. It's good.
And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Eck will be joining us in a few moments. He was in transit.
Yes.
Okay, we'll start with this because you were at the game, and I watched the third period and the overtime of the game. And believe me, I'm well rested this morning because I slept through the last, I would say, 30 minutes of the exciting Flyers-Islanders game. And this is the conclusion I come to, and we'll talk about different aspects of this game. But after watching the Islanders, I have come to the conclusion that unless Lou Lamoriello goes out and makes an acquisition for a finisher, or maybe even two finishers with the cap room that he has, that the Islanders do not have a chance in hell of getting out of that division.
Yeah, they have everything you want from a team. Terrific goaltending. The tandem is great. Sorokin was really good. The defense is solid. They play greasy hockey. They block a lot of shots. You don't get near the net as much as you want to, although the Flyers really weren't trying that hard for a lot of the game to get to the net. They've been bad at that. But as an example, they do a good job with that. They do everything you want, except they pass the puck constantly, and there's so few finishers on that team who actually will take a shot. Obviously, Wallstrom did and will, and that's a big deal. And I'm not just talking about even someone like Brock Nelson. He is a around-the-net guy. What they don't have are guys that could bomb it, a one-timer, from the other outer area, from maybe 20 feet away. Wallstrom's one of them. That's not even Barzal's game. If you think about it, Matt Barzal gets in on the net, gets around guys,
Right.
they can scoring from 5-10 feet away, but he's never scoring from long distance. They don't have anybody who can score from downtown. Now they have Ryan Pulock on the power play, and they don't seem to utilize that as much as they should. I would have him hammering the puck as much as possible. They don't.
Yeah.
But just when it's 5-on-5, they are missing that, and they need to get a guy to do that. And that's what they're really missing.
Now that they don't. I mean, that's not Brock Nelson's game. That's not Barzal's a playmaker. That's not Jordan Eberle's game.
Nope.
So I mean, yeah, they're really and
Wallstrom's game, and so he's won.
Right. But okay, I'll just bring this up because this was something that Elliot Friedman mentioned in his 31 Thoughts column, and we're going to talk. We'll mention some of the things he mentioned on that column later on, but. Dustin Brown is not that player either. Dustin Brown is a guy who is close in. He gets around the net. He buries rebounds. He's a good player, and he's having a really good year, but he's not a sniper. And I'm telling you right now, like, okay, I know Taylor Hall has 2 goals. I know he's not acting like he is a sniper, but he's still a sniper. I think he's been a victim of the fact that Buffalo sucks. And then, they're just not – they're not a good team. Even with Eichel, that it just didn't seem to work. Maybe Eichel was hindered in terms of his ability to set up plays by his injury situation, but Taylor Hall's only got 2 goals. Taylor Hall in that situation, I think, would be the guy that could replace Lee. He's not the same as Lee, but he is a guy who can do one-timers on the power play. He's got a big shot. He's a scorer. They need that type of guy. I don't know if they're going to get it, but
like if the Islanders had Panarin and Zibanejad, they would win the Stanley Cup.
Yes.
And you could see, like, that is a big advantage that the Rangers have if they can build up the rest. Because in times of guys either overpassing or just not being confident, you pass the puck to either one of those guys, 9 times out of 10, they're shooting it and they're hammering off a great shot.
Now, I'll tell you this. I mean, one of the names that came up, and I'll say this. I will laugh. I will laugh out loud if Lou Lamoriello goes out and trades for Travis Zajac before the deadline.
Oh, yeah, that would be horrible.
Travis Zajac, and I'm not trying to be mean here, Travis Zajac is washed up. He doesn't have anything left.
No.
He's a body. A body.
No, and that's why Golishev, by the way, give him a shot, because when he's in the slot, he has an excellent shot and can hit the top corner. That could be enough if they're going to cheap out and not get one of these other great guys and just bring in someone like, I don't know how they're fitting in Dustin Brown. We didn't talk about that, but
and Anthony's like, I'm assuming, Anthony, you're talking about the Islanders.
Yeah.
They haven't put Lee on
right.
LTIR yet.
They will.
He will be put on LTIR. He will be out for the season, and that opens up a significant portion. I think it's like 80% of the $7 million cap hit for his salary. So yes, they're going to be able to add at the deadline, and I think add a significant player or 2 with that cap space. So, yeah. But okay, let's flip on the other side here, Philadelphia, because you were at the game and you said something after the game, and I didn't pick up on it, but it really, if it was 1-1, it was chess. It was not hockey. It was okay. When you're a race, you need every point you get. And I said, okay, this was smart. They could, get the point, guarantee yourself the point, and then go balls out in overtime.
Right.
They kept sitting back in overtime. They didn't take a chance. It's like, what are you trying to do? Get to the shootout? You think your chances are better in the shootout?
It almost seemed that way, Mike. I mean, and I'm not counting the backwards pass because they've been doing that, and a lot of teams have been doing that. But at some point, how many backwards passes are you going to do when nothing's opening up? How about this? Give the puck to Jake Voracek and say, Jake, go take it into the zone. He barely did that last night. It's maddening how inconsistent someone like Jake Voracek can be, because he has some great offensive skills and he has some great stick handling moves. But again, when you need them at the right time, sometimes you don't get that from Jake Voracek. At least Giroux was taking shots. Right. Not everybody was taking shots. Like Kevin Hayes is in such a malaise right now that all the goodwill from last year seems to be gone now with Kevin Hayes with Flyers fans. And so they needed to be aggressive from like the middle of the third period on to realize we've got like 9 home games left. This schedule is starting to dwindle. I give Jim Jackson great credit after the game because he was like, look, there's no moral victories. Games are ticking off the calendar here, and they need wins. And he was right. And I just felt like, and this isn't on AV. AV did come up with a good tactical plan that worked against the Islanders. Again, I think the Islanders worked against the Islanders too, and Sorokin played great. He had a really good game. But at the end of the day, I do think it's one of these situations where, you know what? The players have to look at themselves and say, we've got to be aggressive here. Even if we lose in the first second of overtime, we've got to be aggressive, because if we're not, this season's going to wash over us. Because, you know, getting 1 point in this division, it doesn't help you, especially against a team like the Islanders. It doesn't help you.
Yeah. So, I mean, okay, just somebody was saying on Cap Friendly, it shows that right now the Islanders have no deadline cap space, but they were right up against the cap when Lee got hurt.
Yeah.
And he had a $7 million cap hit. So if they were right up against it at that point, then that opens up prorated, or it opens up, not prorated, but opens up the $7 million. Now, right now, yeah, I mean, it shows their projected cap hit is over by $6 million. I mean, I've heard other people say that they have the space to go add players. So it's like, Anthony, you're reading it right, and I'm reading it right, but they do have the cap space. So I'm not sure, maybe there's something that Cap Friendly hasn't calculated here, but they do have the cap space to go out and make a move.
We're going to play an exercise that I just want to see what your answer will be. Here's the Flyers' next 9 games, right? Going through April 8th.
Okay, you're predicting wins and losses here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Against the Devils tonight.
Win.
Okay, we'll give them a win. Against the Rangers Thursday.
In Philadelphia?
In Philly.
Win. I guess I'll give them a win.
Okay,
but
then
the Rangers are playing better lately, so that's not a gimme.
Then they're playing Saturday day in Philly. I'm going to give them a loss in that one.
Okay, they'll split. So yeah,
so they split
2-1.
2-1. Sabres Monday in Buffalo.
Win.
Sabres Wednesday in Buffalo.
Win.
I believe that's. Oh no, they have one more game against the Sabres after that. Okay. Islanders on the island.
Loss.
Bruins in Buffalo, in Boston.
Loss.
Bruins in Philly.
Win.
Flyers at Islanders.
Loss. So that's 5-4.
That's 5. That's the best case scenario you've got. And now you're hoping you get the full 10 points there. But again, while you're doing that, you're still chasing other teams, and you can't lose. You shouldn't even lose a game to the Rangers, because if the Rangers were to beat you 2 games, they would actually be much closer than I thought they would be, right? So
yeah, and the thing is that I mean, you're not taking into consideration with those games some of them being 3-point games. They could win in overtime, they could lose.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're in a race with these teams, and if it's 3-point games, then you're not gaining as much or you're not losing as much. So
and that's it for the Sabres. Like after that last one, they're done with the Sabres. At that point, they're only playing teams like the Capitals, the Penguins, the Rangers, the Devils a few more times, and that's it. Yeah, those are the teams. So they have like 4 against the Devils.
And somebody was making a comment in the chat about Pittsburgh and how they're being decimated by injuries right now. You know, and they're in a race with Philadelphia for one of those bottom spots. Pittsburgh plays Buffalo, I think, 5 more times still.
Yeah, that's their saving grace right there. That's their season.
So, I mean, and okay, we'll move on to this. Buffalo loses their 14th in a row yesterday to the Rangers.
Really lost count. I mean, it's unbelievable how little I could care about an NHL franchise. Like, it's just – I used to say that years ago when Arizona was toiling, but at least Arizona plays good hockey.
I wouldn't care if it wasn't for the fact that I cover them for another website and they're in my city. But it's to the point now where people are. I mean, people have been ashamed about this team all year.
Yeah.
It's getting to the point of like ridiculous embarrassment. I don't know what the NHL record for most losses is. It's getting pretty close, 14 in a row. Even though I think there were one or two. I think they're like 0-12-2. They've lost 14, but they lost a couple. One in shootout or one in overtime. So.
They lost the shootout to Philly, I think.
Right. But so it's not 14 regulation losses. 18. Okay.
They could do it.
Yes, they could do it. Now,
it was the Penguins in 03-04.
Which I think that's the Crosby draft.
Yep. Yeah. Well, yes, because 05 was his first season. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so the Sabres only got 19 shots on goal. Carter Hutton got hurt. But they still tied the game in the third period, and then bad defensive play in front of the net. Chris Kreider scores the winning goal. Again, let's not do it because it would be too depressing. But you read their schedule. I don't know when they get that next win.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe.
See, Anthony says he likes that Buffalo's getting this much attention. Okay, if you're attention starved, who would be the next win? All right, I have to look at the Sabres schedule now. Hold on.
Okay. Yeah, well, they said on the radio, well, no, they always play better. They always play good in Pittsburgh, but
I'm not counting on that one.
With Crosby, Malkin is hurt, but with Crosby, I can't see it. I mean, Eichel's not back. Now, this is the thing. Right now they're goaltending. Right now it's Dustin Tokarski and Michael Hauser. I'm going to check here because they said something on the broadcast yesterday, which I didn't.
I'm going to give you the game.
Okay.
Monday, March 29th, which would be the fourth one where they could tie the record. They're playing the Flyers at home. That could be the one.
Okay. Dustin Tokarski played one game with Anaheim in 2016-17 and has been an AHLer since. So that's 4 years. And he played in his first game in 4 years last night. He's the number one right now because Linus Ullmark just came off the injured list. He's on the trip with them.
Right.
Michael Hauser, who's never played an NHL game, is the backup. And they're not. And the reason they signed Hauser is because the last thing they want to do is bring up their prize prospect, Luukkonen. So, it's really a bad situation. Now, the thing is, they don't want to rush Ullmark back because Ullmark is just coming off injury.
Right.
So,
Let's see, Michael Hauser, I got to look him up because I wanted to see if he was a Florida guy at one time because that's where I kind of remember him from. I just clicked on the wrong thing, but here we go. Michael Hauser from Youngstown, Ohio. He actually was never drafted, but I do remember him as a player for the London Knights. That's where I remember him from. That goes back to 2009 to 2012, and then he's just been on a sojourn between the AHL and the ECHL and everything else.
Well, and Nat in the chat is asking why can't they grab Dell from the Devils? Okay, why would they want to trade for a goalie right now? Why would they want to give up assets for a goalie?
Yeah, they have to give up assets. They're
not going to waive Dell because
they're not going to. Right, they're not going to add salary. Dell makes pretty good money.
Right now, granted, here's they're going to start probably in the next few days start to pare down the roster. I mean, it makes no sense to not unless they're holding out until the last minute to get squeeze every little drop out of teams looking for rental players. But Hall, Stahl, Montour, maybe a couple other players I think are going to start moving fairly soon because you risk situations like Jonathan Bernier, like a player getting hurt, or Tanner.
Yeah, actually, you know what? He was signed by the Panthers because when he played for the Cyclones, they were the Panthers affiliate.
Yeah, he had an ELC like 5-6 years ago, and then
I did remember him as a Panther, even though he never played for him. It's an amazing thing sometimes with goalies how they hang on I hope he plays his first NHL game. Like, I want the guy to get a game in. Like, why not?
Sure. I mean, Christ, if David Ayers gets a game, and then Michael Hauser should.
What a game it was.
Oh, shut up. Now, Montour, somebody said Montour would be a nice piece. Montour has not played well in Buffalo, but
he's better the last week or so, I feel. I think a little bit.
You know what I think it is? What I think it is, Russ, is that he knows eyes are on him.
Mm-hmm.
He knows that he's going to get traded. He's anxious to get traded because it's a bad situation in Buffalo, but it's also a situation where he's looking for his new contract, and he's going to have to show something over the last couple weeks of the season and in the playoffs to drum up interest in free agency. So, I mean, there's a lot of these rental players. They're going to want to go to teams and show off what they have in the playoffs. That's
the only way they're going to get a decent contract. Although it wouldn't shock me if Montour goes to Anaheim again for like a year, a 1-year deal or something, a 2-year deal.
Maybe.
He's fallen. His stock is fallen. Like,
yeah, but the thing is, I mean, and maybe that's possible because then they will get him for less than. Yeah, they traded him not because they didn't think he was good, but they traded him because he was up for a big contract. I mean, he's making almost $4 million, and they didn't want to pay him.
And he's not getting that now.
Yeah, he's probably going to get a look-see deal, like a 1-year, 2.5.
Right, and they might do that.
Yeah. Okay. Other games last night. X says he'll be joining us any second here. The Hurricanes with a 3-0 shootout over the Columbus Blue Jackets. Now, Columbus has moved into a tie with Chicago at the for fourth spot in that division, and the Hurricanes, Columbus only had 19 shots on goal, so it wasn't exactly a big challenge for Nedeljkovic. But Nedeljkovic is playing well for them. I just don't know whether the Hurricanes are going to go with a relative. I mean, he's 25 years old. He's got a 1.96 goals against him.
No playoff experience, and he's playing so many games.
Right, and that's the thing. It's like, okay, now you're either going with the sure thing in terms of an experienced guy who's played in the playoffs, but you know that he's not good in James Reimer, or Mrazek, he's been injured off and on this year. Or you roll the dice and you go with an inexperienced Nedeljkovic, who is the same age as Jordan Binnington when Jordan Binnington won a cup. So maybe you roll the dice because I think you know what you're going to get out of Reimer. One game he'll look great. One game he'll cost you the game.
Here's the interesting thing. So when Carolina made the switch that year, how many games did Cam Ward play?
In the playoffs?
Regular
season. He didn't play a lot. I think they called him up late, didn't they? I would say like 15 games the most in the regular season.
28.
Okay. Yeah, I know he didn't play a ton. Yeah.
Right, and he was 14-8. So clearly, when they switched to him, that's fine. But he had only played 28 games, so he was fresh.
Right.
Nedeljkovic is at 11 right now, and I would say at the pace he's on, he's going to play 30,
25 maybe.
So
they're going to play Reimer a little bit, you would think.
Okay, so basically he did play 49 and 51 a couple of years ago, and then 29 last year. You're basically going to throw this guy back to where he was 3-4 years ago in the AHL for maybe another 29 games. I still think that's what he's going to end up playing. Then you're going to ask him to go through the whole playoffs and win out. Like, this is a guy, I like him. And he's not a kid. He's 25, but he just doesn't have the experience. Are you really expecting another Cam Ward situation here?
I think they're hoping because I think they know what
they're hoping, but it's just.
I think they know what they have in the other guys, and they're probably saying to themselves, okay, this is an option we don't know. We know we're going to get. We're going to get to a certain point with the other guys, and then they're going to let us down like they did last.
Just to interject 1 second into the chat room, they're saying sloppy joes were the grossest lunch at school. No, shepherd's pie was worse.
We never had shepherd's pie. Sloppy joes and chili are the most disgusting.
No, we never had chili. Thank God.
Oh, God, it was disgusting.
Yeah, that would be frightening.
Update. There's Zach. Okay.
Speaking of frightening.
Hi, kids. Thanks, Ross. I like that.
Speaking
of frightening, I'm in my friggin' wife's office right now because there's so much traffic coming back from where I was going to.
Are you in the middle of screen printing something?
This is a huge. This is like secret stuff back there.
It is okay. It looked like a screen printer. Now I see it's equipment.
It's way more than that. Equipment. It's a friggin' tank of water and all different sorts of things that test different kinds of stuff.
Is it heavy water?
Can you tell us what specific?
No, I cannot tell you specifically what you're working on. It would be
not that.
It would be illegal.
Can you tell us what the specific gravity of that water is?
Yeah, heavy water.
The gravity of the water is probably the same as the gravity of Earth.
James in the chat would
that is so untrue. Your wife would have your head just for saying that.
Yeah, she probably would.
We were just talking about disgusting school lunches, and I have to say James brought up one that I didn't think of: the Salisbury steak burger.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yes, because it was slathered in this gravy that was like sandwich gravy. It was so gross.
Yeah.
I will back people in the chat room right now who say Wendy's chili is good. Wendy's chili is good.
Yeah, I had it back in the day. It was good.
The chili and cheese, especially with the melted cheese and stuff like that.
But we had shepherd's pie at lunch in school, and that was a non-starter.
Oh, shepherd's pie that's wrong. Yeah, you can't. That stuff that's in there, that's like, it's weird. It's a combination of like meat and then fruit. Like you understand meat and vegetables.
No, it's not fruit. It's the mashed potatoes on top of the meat, and then carrot.
Yeah, but then there's also like be like blueberries in there and stuff like that. Like that's the weird thing.
That's crazy.
That's the weird. That when I had shepherd's pie in Amish land out here in Pennsylvania, that's what I had.
I know people who make chili and they crush Oreo cookies in it, which I don't understand.
Why would you do that?
I don't know. They're sick. They're
that's gross.
Anyway, let's get to hockey.
One more thing, quick
question. You guys talking about hockey at all today?
No, we did, but one more quick one. What was invented first, the Hydrox cookie or the Oreo?
Hydrox first.
Hydrox. And when I was a kid, I was watching the things that, the food that built America. I remember Hydrox as a kid, and then it kind of got out-marketed by Oreos. Not that Oreos were better. I don't even know if they were.
They are better.
I did look it up. Hydrox still exists, but I've never seen them
in
the wild.
We used to get everything cheaper because, my dad, I was a military kid, and we didn't have all that much money. So it's like I had the Hydrox Oreos. My mom would get me the at the time when it was cool to have Izod things, the alligator shirts and stuff like that. I would get the alligator that was way bigger than it should have been. Like it was the knockoff alligator, stuff like that. Yes, that was me back then. Or an elephant. There was one that had an elephant on it, I think.
No, and you drink RC Cola instead of Coke.
Listen, RC Cola is fine. Don't rip on RC Cola.
No, it wouldn't be RC Cola. It would just be like Acme Cola, like cola.
That's even worse.
Pop Shop Cola.
Yeah. All right,
let's talk.
I am chasing. Yes, Eck, are you chasing rumors of Ekholm in the Flyers trainers room? No, none of us are allowed in the training room.
No.
That's the last place we would be allowed right now. But I do have something to talk about with that.
Is Zach drinking a 40?
Yeah, this is the big version of my iced tea, by the way. It's like
I got you beat. Pure leaf.
That's
this is not 40, but it's
you have this
52. It's 50. I'm drinking a 52, man. This is a 52 ouncer. This will be my whole day. I'm going to this because it's better for the environment.
This is water. That's it.
All right, so let's talk.
All right, Ekholm. God, just to get here. I'm pulling off. I'm going into my wife's office. This is ridiculous. All right, just to get here has been amazing. So sorry, I probably very much appreciate your patience. Okay, so here we go. This is what appears to be happening. The Ekholm prices, the Nashville course right now, Nashville's coming back with high prices. They're saying, we want, like we've been talking about, okay, give us Farabee and a first round draft pick and everything. And the Flyers aren't the only team to find that kind of ridiculous. So they're saying, he is covered for one more year for sure, and he's a good, solid top four defenseman. But is he worth as two potential stars? Because if you give him Farabee and a first round draft pick, you're talking about two potential stars. And they really don't think the majority of people will tell you that they don't think he is worth that, right? So then what has happened is that is why you're hearing the Ellis talk, because I was trying to figure out what was going on with the Ellis talk. What's happening with the Ellis talk is that teams are going towards Ellis, and they're saying, okay, if you really want that, we're willing to maybe part with that for Ellis, but we're not willing to part with that for Ekholm. So that's really why the Ellis talk is happening. Now that is not to say
more than that for Ellis.
Yes.
Yeah, but this is where teams are starting with it, right? So
right. Right.
Because they're saying, that sounds like something we would pay. We'd be more comfortable paying for Ellis.
Well, and
with Nashville has not come back yet with saying that Ellis is really even available. And I don't think he is.
Well,
but if he is, he could be.
From the Flyers' perspective, Ellis makes more sense for a number of reasons. One, he's a righty. So you could play, and he's played top pairing in Nashville, or at least top 4. So you'd be a fit with Provorov. He's a power play quarterback, and I think Provorov is not a great fit as a power play quarterback, but Ellis is. He's got a big.
Ellis has a superior shot. Even to Gostisbehere, at this point, he would have the best shot on the Flyers.
So I mean, for those, and the fact that if you're going to give up 2-3 assets. A guy locked up for 6 years at 6.25, which is not a ridiculous salary, makes a lot more sense than a guy that value for a guy.
And it's going to be more than Lucas Spiza. Like if you call Paul Holmgren and say, "Hey, what did you do for the Pronger deal?" They essentially got lucky on the Pronger deal. They did. They're not getting
Pronger pretty much dictated that, from what I understand.
Yes.
Like Pronger basically had, he had no movement. He could say where he wanted to go, so he didn't give many options to them. So they pretty much. The Flyers convinced him kind of through the grapevine, through friends networks and stuff like that, that they were the place to go.
Yeah.
And see, the thing with Ellis is like what Mike you said there is exactly right. And that contract is very friendly to not only, the Flyers and other teams, but mainly to a team that needs friendly contracts is the Nashville Predators. So it's like, that's a really hard thing for Poile to move, because this is exactly what Poile needs to do to have the Predators be successful. They have to have those kind of contracts.
And also it also maintains the Flyers' salary structure, because Ellis is not making as much as Provorov. Provorov is the highest paid defenseman at 6.75. They trade for Ellis. He's making 6.25.
Right.
And you can go when Myers comes up for a contract, or Sanheim comes up for a contract. You're going to say, okay, you're not going to make as much as those guys. Those are our top 2 defensemen.
I don't even think both of them will be on the team by the time you're talking about that.
But here's the big kicker.
One of them will be gone. One will be there. One will be gone. That's my.
There's another big kicker in this that's really even a bigger factor, I'm told, and that is the Flyers' main target, which is Seth Jones. Now, that of course would be pretty surprising, but the Seth Jones situation is where it's at right now, is that they're not going to move him this year during the year, but they are also sitting back and saying, okay, we are not going to go into next year with Seth Jones not signed. So they are going to, from what I'm hearing from Columbus,
well, he's not signing. We know he's not
right.
signing.
Is that he's either going to extend him in the summer, or maybe move him in the summer.
All right, but wait, hold on. Can we stop playing the charade that maybe they're going to sign him in the summer? This is like the 3rd time. This is more than Groundhog Day now, with guys that just don't want to play in Columbus.
No, but I think Seth Jones is not in that category, Russ. I think that from what I've been told, Seth Jones really does love it there, and he's very different. He's a very different player than the ones before. And I think that there is hope that they can extend him. He does not want to go someplace else. The other guys are all kind of indifferent about that.
He also wants to win. And he's not going to win in Columbus when every time they get a good player, that player asks out.
Well, here nor there on that one. Whether or not so this puts the Flyers and other teams who are, obviously the Flyers are the only team. If Seth Jones is available,
sure.
Flyers aren't going to be the only team bidding on him. Seth Jones is one of the top 3 or 4 defensemen in the league, right? So you're talking about a major acquisition at in his absolute prime. You're talking about a big time player.
Yeah, that's even a bigger acquisition in Ellis. What you're going to give up?
I would
probably the best defenseman we've ever seen traded. To be honest, that I can think of. If he's traded, I can't think of a better defenseman that's been traded than Ellis.
I would trade.
Then what's his name would be?
I would trade William Nylander in 2 seconds for Seth Jones.
Yeah, except you're going to have to give up a lot more than that.
No, but Nylander's locked up for 4 more years, and honestly, anything that Columbus accepts in a trade for Jones is going to be somebody who's either locked up long term or controllable long term.
Sure, I can see that.
Yeah. So the Flyers are sitting there and they are trying to get a feel, and why this is taking a while, from what I was told, and is that they're trying to get a feel for this Seth Jones situation, because the pieces you would use to get Ekholm or Ellis.
But they're chasing a rainbow, Ek. That's what they're doing with Seth Jones. They're chasing a rainbow.
Yeah, you don't think he's going to resign there. They don't think he's going to resign there either. Okay, so
I just don't think they're going to make a trade right now, exactly like you said. I don't think they're going to do it.
They're not going to. Columbus has said they're not going to trade Seth Jones this year during the season. So that puts you in a position where you have to sit back and say, okay, we're not going to make this move because we want to keep those pieces to make them to try to potentially make a Seth Jones move in the summer. That is.
I can go out on a date with Scarlett Johansson, but I'm going to hold out for a date with Brie Larson. I mean, if you have an opportunity to get Ryan Ellis. You get Ryan Ellis. You don't hold out for the possibility of getting Seth Jones because more than likely Columbus.
Right. I think you might be right about that, but at the same time, they don't. Again, where the Ellis thing is still very preliminary to the point where that I think that it is really more about teams talking to them about Ryan Ellis than it is Poyle saying that even Ellis is even available. Like I don't even think that what Poyle is not shutting the door. I'll give you that. And Poyle shuts doors.
Why would he?
Right, why would he? But he does shut doors. In the past, he has.
He's in a bad place. He's
in a bad place this year. I agree. So he's got to look at everything. Everything is possible.
But here's my problem with Fletcher. Okay, he's facing a rainbow with Seth Jones. He's not going to catch it this season. If he doesn't do something soon, other teams will acquire those other players, and then he will have to just be stuck with the team he has with a minor alteration. If I were him, I would do one of two things. I would either do the minor alteration and call it a media press conference and say, hey, look, this is where we stand. We're going with these guys. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I've looked at everything. But if he goes the other way and tries to do everything sort of like waiting to make this home run move and does nothing, even though I don't think that's a bad strategy because the Flyers have many flaws, he is going to get excoriated by the media and by the fans.
Yeah.
I mean, I relayed this to Russ yesterday. It's like, right now, the Flyers are in the same position, and of course, I always linked everything to Toronto because I know that team like the back of my hand. They're right now where Toronto was, I would say, when they lost to the Flyers in 2004. A team that had a core group that was aging, and they kept adding these guys. They traded for Owen Nolan. They added Ron Francis. They added, they kept adding these guys. And they weren't a team that they had brought in a 40-year-old Eddie Balfour. They kept adding these guys, thinking that they were the. If the Flyers go out and make a deal, I don't think they're an Ekholm or an Ellis away from winning a Stanley Cup. I think they're 2 or 3 pieces away, and I think they're lying to their fans by saying, "Okay, we're going to go out and this guy is going to be the key to winning a Stanley Cup." No, you're not that close. You're not.
Yeah, but I can see the analogy to a degree, but they haven't really done that yet of picking up the old guys, like that. They're not in that boat yet. I mean, this really is still mainly a homegrown group for the most part.
No, but whatever.
There's some guys that are definitely. I mean, you could sit there, but I wouldn't call.
Voracek's not homegrown.
Right.
He practically is at this point.
They spent $7 million on a free agent deal for James Van Riemsdyk. Okay, that was one.
Well, that was before. That was a long time ago.
It was 2 years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry, 2 years ago deal.
Yeah, it was 2 years ago. No, what I was saying is like they added pieces as if they were a team that was 1 piece away, and they were 3 or 4 pieces away. And that's dangerous because now you're in a position where your fan base might be expecting you to make a deal like Ekholm, like Ellis, and they think that's the last piece. Okay, now we're cooking. No, if you lose after making the Ryan Ellis deal, then you've basically been lying to your fans that you were this close. You're not.
Right.
You're better off keeping your young guys and watching them grow and building around them than going overboard to get that one last piece when that's not the last piece.
I do want to answer to something. I see 97.5 posted something where John Kincaid on his show said if the Flyers don't make the playoffs, there'll be a sacrificial lamb, AV's safe, and then eventually I guess mentioned Mike Yeo.
Oh my God.
If they think that is the answer, righting the ship. The Flyers fans are smarter than that. They're better off keeping the coaching staff intact and doing something with the players and then giving AV one more season with the coaches that he wants. If they start doing that and piecing the coaches away from AV and maybe choosing their own coaches, they're gonna speed up the timetable on AV's departure. That's what's going to happen. I've seen it. Trust me. I've seen this before.
No, I mean, this AV is already we've seen AV's demise in other places, right? And this is he's already on that track. He's in the same. He's
starting to hit that track. He is,
but
he already is on the track. He's already hit. The goaltending is always the beginning for him of the end. Like it has been before. It's handling goaltending is just not good, and it's the reality of the situation. So. He's handled the goaltenders to the point where neither one has confidence right now. And
having a different assistant is not going to help this team.
Yeah, it means nothing at all to the players or anybody. No, honestly, really.
Now, Elliot Friedman did report that, and if they decide that Ekholm or an Ellis move is too expensive right now, Friedman was reporting that the Flyers might consider somebody like Mark Stahl. But this is the thing. I talked this with Russ last night, and I'll let you go on this. Mark Stahl is not Matt Niskanen.
No. Here's the situation, Ek. Think of it this way. You've got an AV's going to do a lot of different lineups between now and the end of the year with these defensemen because he's playing musical chairs. He's trying his best. So now you're going to have Justin Braun, who clearly was tired in the third period yesterday, Mark Stahl, who was not fleet of foot, and then you got Gostisbehere and Gustafsson, who you don't know what to do with either. That's 4 defensemen out of like 7 or 8 you have to choose from if you want to add Nate Prosser of what the hell to do with every night. Why would I do that to myself?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I mean, I think Mark Stahl isn't definitely not.
He knows him, but this is like way past it. Way past it.
No, but I said to Russ last night, how many number 6 defensemen can you have?
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's what Stahl is. He's a good number 6 penalty killer, but you can't put him on the top pairing because he's too slow. And I don't think you can put him in on the second pairing because he's too. So he's got to be a bottom pairing, and all that's doing is covering up for the mistake that Fletcher made by signing that stiff Gustafsson.
Yeah.
Mark Stahl has 6 takeaways and 22 giveaways. He's playing an average of 18 minutes a night for Detroit, which is too many minutes anyhow. Of course, he's a minus because most of Detroit's a minus. You know, I know he had those few goals. He's not going to score goals. Like, I don't know why you would get him, honestly. And I love Mark Stahl as a guy. He's a great guy, but no.
Yeah, I don't get it either. We'll see. I mean, the Seth Jones thing is going to be interesting to follow for sure because that I think does.
I think that's an off-season thing.
It's an off-season thing. I think it is for sure. They've already said it's an off-season thing, so
yeah, because
they've always been pretty honest about it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're wishing for Seth Jones to be on the Flyers, then you're hoping that the Teletubbies series comes back. Like that's really where you're at.
Yeah, that was not a good series. I used to watch it with my kids. When you have kids, you know, they wake up at 5 a.m. That was the first thing on back then.
Wow. Actually, I had a friend this kid now is in his 20s. My best friend's kid, The Land That Time Forgot. He watched that like a million times.
Oh, that's a good one. That's actually much better.
That's not bad. It's not terrible.
Much better than Teletubbies, which is almost like you feel like there's a famous Simpsons where Lala, one of the Teletubbies, just says "kill everyone."
Right.
And Lisa said, "Did Lala just say kill everyone?" You feel like they are saying in between the Gagas, you feel like they're saying subliminal messages to everyone.
Yes.
It was actually Itchy and Scratchy pulling the strings in the back.
It probably was.
Probably was.
All right. Go ahead, Mike.
Go ahead.
No, it's just the in the chat room we had a question here.
Well, somebody asked about.
I want to say this. Johnny said his dad worked for Sunshine Biscuit Company. That's kind of cool. Anyhow,
somebody asked about the CU in LA.
They won't
spend right there. It's working out pretty well for him right now, isn't it? I mean, it feels like it's like not the worst situation.
I think they're going to trade him. I don't think they're going to keep him.
Yeah, he's got 12. He's got 12 points in 23 games, 6 goals, 6 assists.
I think they're a clearinghouse for him. I think they're going to look at it and say right before the playoffs start, you know what? We're not really a playoff team. Let's trade him and get some assets. He's not going to be in our future.
Now, he's an arbitration-eligible RFA, which gives the team the option to not qualify him. The qualifying offer would be like $1.4 million, which isn't bad, but he hasn't really jumped off the page there. So
but somebody would take him. Somebody would take him, but I don't think LA will keep him.
It's going to be hard to find a market for him. I agree with Bill in the chat room. I don't really think that they think that that's going to be a tough market. April 12th. That's an easy answer.
No, that's what I mean. I think somebody could get desperate at that time and take him.
Yeah, I think, and that the question is, when's the last day Ottawa would sell anything? I know April 12th is it, and really that's really what you'd have to say. And they are going to go up to the trade deadline. They'll take it right to the deadline.
Well, remember this. With Ottawa, they have the advantage. They're in Canada, so they could trade to Montreal, Edmonton, Calgary, whoever else, and those teams wouldn't have to wait the 14 days for the quarantine. If they trade to a U.S. team, I think the quarantine is 7 days. So it wouldn't. It's only when the players are coming into Canada is it the ridiculous 14 days. So you for a team that's clearly selling, it's not going to be a disadvantage for Ottawa to be in Canada. It's actually an advantage because they can trade to Canadian teams, and it doesn't hurt them as much trading to American teams.
All right, but here's a cap question. So at the trading deadline, if I get a player and he goes immediately into 14-day quarantine, is he counting directly against the cap for all 14 days, or is he like a?
I don't know.
It's like I think it's like he's on IR. I think his money counts.
Wow. So that's another factor, because if you could only make one move, and your guy is going into a long quarantine, do you want to do it with somebody with a shorter quarantine? Like that is a factor then. And
this is the thing that like I said, I asked Dubas last week in the media availability, are you going to wait around to see whether the quarantine is going to be reduced to 7 days, because there's been a lot of speculation about that. And he's like, I really can't wait because I don't know whether it's ever going to change. He's going on the assumption it's going to stay 14 days, which I think makes it more likely that
you have to stay there for now. You do. You have to stay thinking there for now.
It makes it more likely that he's going to trade with a Canadian team or make his move now if it's with an American team.
Does Jason Demers fit in the Flyers where the Flyers actually are, Tom?
I mean, we've talked about it. He could do better than some, at least. Yeah. He's a little better than Justin Braun speed-wise. But
better than Mark Stahl, put it that way.
It's better than Mark Stahl.
But he's not a Tom.
I think it's an option. I think it's definitely an option. I really do. I wouldn't be shocked.
Salary?
His salary is
pretty high.
It's under 4. It's under 4.
So Gostisbehere would have to go back in the deal with like a prospect or pick.
Yeah, just under 4, 3.93 million. And he's not having a good year either. He's got 21 games. He's got 2 assists.
I guess, but you're not getting him for points. You could move Gustafsson. What's Gustafsson making? 3.5?
3.
Well, you could maybe move Gustafsson in that deal to make it happen.
He's an expiring contract too. So yeah.
I don't know. It'll be interesting. There's going to be a lot going on. I have to go right now, unfortunately, because it's 2:00 and I have.
Okay.
All right. We'll just take a couple questions and we'll.
I really appreciate everybody's patience today. We'll be back tomorrow without any craziness, and I'll see you then.
Okay. See you tomorrow.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. A couple questions in the chat before we go. Just shoot them in there. Let's see here. Okay. Take Tom's question up. Okay, who are the Leafs making room for with all these moves? Your guess is as good as mine. I wrote about
biologist. That's who they're making room for.
Well, I wrote about this in my blog today. They're right up against it, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to be able to, move salary out to bring salary in. But they're right. I mean, right now they're at their absolute, they're stripped down. They're at 12-4, and it's right now because they're not playing. So they're opening up daily cap room by going to 12, 6, and 3. 12 forwards, 6 defensemen, and 3 goalies because Anderson is hurt. They haven't put Anderson on IR yet, but Anderson wouldn't save them any money if he goes on IR. It's only LTIR.
Right.
And he's not expected to be out that long. It's a sort of day-to-day thing. I don't think that the talk on the weekend was maybe their focus is shifted from forward to defense. And that would make sense because if you look at their depth chart in terms of options at forward, they've got Agostino, they got Barabanov, and these are all bottom six guys. They got Agostino, they got Barabanov, they got Joey Anderson, as you mentioned yesterday. They have Nick Robertson, who's hurt right now, but is day-to-day, so they expect him to be back at some point. On defense, God forbid, right now Rasmus Sandin is just coming back from a broken foot. Like the cast is off. He hasn't started skating yet, so he's at least a few weeks away. And if they're going, if the options are inexperienced guys like Kristen Rubens or Timothy Liljegren or Mac Hollowell, the first option is going to be Martin Marincin, and that's a friggin' disaster because he is terrible. So if they're going to trade for a defenseman, it's not going to be somebody with big money. It's probably going to be like, and I listed 4 guys: Jordy Ben, Travis Hamonic, both with Vancouver. There would be no 14-day quarantine. The other ones are Kulikov and Vatanen with New Jersey, and they're both making Vatanen's making $2 million, Kulikov's making 1.1. Those are amounts that they can fit under the cap. So we'll see. Now, Jake is asking if Kraftstoff goes in the lineup, who comes out?
Well, he's not going to go in for a while. They have some cap things they have to figure out too. So can't really say right now. I mean, the easy answer is if he's going to play center, it should be Brett Howden, but I don't have an easy answer.
Right. Is Jordan Harris the next Justin Schultz?
I mean, Justin Schultz was really top offensive player. Harris is in that next notch. I've seen him. He's effective, but no.
Okay. Where does that home ending up? Winnipeg. I think Winnipeg is in
Nashville. They do trade Ryan Ellis.
Yeah, I think Winnipeg is.
Winnipeg does seem likely, though.
Yeah, Ellis is not a fit with Winnipeg. Ekholm is.
Yeah.
Let's see.
There was a Hobie Baker question there. I'll answer it. Yeah. I think it'll be Wisconsin's Cole Caulfield. Yes.
Yeah. There's no doubt in my mind it's going to be Caulfield. Are the Rangers sellers?
They won't admit that they're sellers till the very last minute. That's the last basic press conference that JD wants to do, saying that they're going to look at their options and see what who they can move. He doesn't want to go there, but he's going to have to at some point.
Elizabeth's asking, does Dubas try to avoid your questions? Of course he doesn't, because my questions are insightful and very very answerable. Why would he avoid my questions? Anyway, okay. Good show, guys. We will be back tomorrow with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. For the departed Eklund, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thank you for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just